Hi, everybody, and welcome to the AADL staff discussion of this year's Big Gay Read, the Big Gay Read 2023, last night at the Telegraph Club by Malinda Lowe. Now, I think before we get going in discussing the book, how about we all take a moment to introduce ourselves? I'm Jacob. I am an AADL employee, of course, where I work in the outreach department. And I'm really excited to get this discussion going. This is one of the first events we're filming for the Big Gay Read, so I'm chomping at the bit. And my pronouns are he, him.
My name is Beth. I am also part of the outreach team, and I'm really looking forward to discussing this book. I enjoyed the book.
My name is Marissa. I am also in the outreach team with Beth and Jacob. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm really excited about talking about this book.
I'm Christopher. I'm in the youth department at the library, and I use he, him pronouns.
I'm Krista, and I'm a desk clerk at the library, and I use she and they pronouns.
I'm Lucy. I work in the youth department at the library. I also love doing these book discussions. I use she, her pronouns.
Hi, I'm Lauren, and I'm a desk clerk at the library. I use he, him pronouns.
Hi, I'm Heidi. I work in the archives department at AADL, and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm excited to talk about the book.
Yes, and I do have to say thank you guys so much for putting in the time reading the book and the willingness to be filmed talking about it. I'm so glad to be here with you all. Let's start off. I'm going to do my best to do a brief summary for those who might have not read the book yet or have not interacted with the book from cover to cover. So Last Night at the Telegraph Club is the story of Lily, who is the daughter of Chinese immigrants. It's 1954, San Francisco's Chinatown, and she's in high school, and she's kind of coming to terms with who she is, which includes her place in America as somebody who is Chinese, her identity as somebody who is a woman-loving woman. And especially in this time period and with her family, there's a lot to unravel for her, especially as she falls in love for the first time with one of her classmates, Kath. So that's just a little taste of what's going on in this book. I would love to know from y'all, looking back on your reading experience, what was your reaction? Or what's kind of your general feeling now that you've read the book?
Well, I absolutely loved it. It was a lot longer and more in depth than I was anticipating from a YA novel. But I used to live in San Francisco, so that gave like this special layer to me of nostalgia and being able to picture the places she went and places that she went to that no longer exist, like Playland. But like the Musée Mécanique does still exist, even though Playland doesn't. It's on Fisherman's Wharf. And so when they talk about that, like I could picture it in my mind, and it was really special for me.
That's pretty cool. I had only visited once, but I was also San Francisco. But I was able to, visualize some of the parts that I knew. And I had gone to Cliff House too, for dinner. So I thought that was pretty cool. But yes, I enjoyed the book too a lot. It was one of those that I was reading, for pleasure, actually, not just for work. So I liked it.
I agree with what Krista said about recognizing San Francisco. I also lived in California for a while, and also just more amorphously, like recognizing one's first experience, like going to a lesbian club or a gay club, and like feeling, what all those feelings rushing through you are. So that felt really like familiar and kind of special to read about from this perspective.
I really loved this book too. And I think that Malinda Lowe did such a good job creating these characters that you really get invested in and you really get attached to. Like, I just felt Lily was, so true to herself the whole way through. But then this book is obviously so well researched that I just felt like I was learning a lot as well about a lot of different little things going on in this historical period in time.
I really liked the kind of subversion of your expectations as a reader, like things that maybe were dropped into the story and the plot that didn't exactly come to fruition later on. For example, the papers that were taken from Lily's father. And I kept waiting and waiting for her parents to wake up when she was coming home, and so many other things like that. And I know some people have criticized the book for that, but I kind of enjoyed that. It's like these are just part of life, and they don't necessarily lead to this giant plot pivot point later on.
In general, I don't read a whole lot of YA novels. So I always like, I'm a little nervous going into YA novels, which is like, what is this going to be like? But I really enjoyed this book a lot. I think Malinda Lo is like a beautiful writer. It felt like intelligent and well-researched and smart and nostalgic. And like, it was just a very sweet story in a lot of ways. Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised.
There was so much depth in the characters, and there was also all the different microaggressions that they were getting, by being Asian and women and girls, and of course the sexuality aspect of it. I too was like, wow, I can't believe she didn't get busted sneaking out. I mean, really. And I don't think I ever actually snuck out like that. So good on her.
I want to say this book might inspire some teen readers to sneak out of their houses, because this character really doesn't get caught very much. But I wanted to say more seriously, it was really interesting to me. My favorite part of the book was the going to the lesbian club, the experience, the feelings of that, and then what transpires there. I was drawing a parallel between this story and another piece of media that I had recently experienced, which is A League of Their Own, where there is also a kind of like a underground nightclub for gay people. I think it might have been specifically lesbians, but I'm not sure. But the gist was it was a very similar kind of, to me. I was making a connection to that and feeling like the intensity of those scenes in this book, and remembering the intensity of what was portrayed in A League of Their Own, the TV version, the reboot. But yeah, I thought the book overall was very atmospheric. It didn't move as quickly as I wanted it to. It was too long, in my opinion. I'm just going to come out and say that. But I did enjoy the atmospheric quality of it. And yeah, Beth, I lived in San Francisco too. So I'm another one of those people who lived there for a time and enjoyed some of the references to the streets of San Francisco and the landmarks there, both some that are still there and some that aren't gone. Yeah.
There is like a foggy romance to San Francisco. When I visited there, there's like this, I'm going to call it a foggy romance. And it just creates this mood. And I think I felt that mood throughout the book, especially against this backdrop of these two people falling in love. It felt sumptuous. I liked it. I want to touch on something that Christopher and Marissa touched on a little bit. And something that I really enjoyed about the book is that I think if this book were to be written by a different author, it would have been infinitely more tragic. There is almost a knee-jerk need for authors, especially when they're writing about queer people, where there's just huge tragic things happen. The father would have been kicked out of America. She would have been this, and that. She would have got caught a million times. Her life would have been awful. And that's not what happens in this book, which is so refreshing. And I think in some way, truer to life. Not for all, but for many. But I think especially from the beginning to the end, I was just like, oh, we're in good hands here. This author knows, they get it. Somebody had mentioned the historical aspects of the book. I would be eager to hear from y'all. What is something that you learned from reading this book? Whether that be about history, the queer experience. There's so much here. And I would love to know what stuck out to you.
And it's not a huge part, but I think it's an important part, is the the Pulp Fiction that Lily finds in the drugstore. I had read another YA book that was kind of focused on that. And at that point, I really learned about it, and I was interested to see it come up again and how important it was for Lily and, for other people, for other like lesbians discovering it at that time, because like Lily didn't realize this was something that even existed. And so to be able to see it, in this book, and then the way that they're sort of hidden in this drugstore. And I just think there's a really interesting history around that. I did find on Malinda Lowe's website, she talks about it a little bit more too, which I was excited to see, but I liked that part of this book.
So for me, one of the like other books that this lived with in my brain was Stone Butch Blues, which I recommend everybody read, just for like the queer history part of it. So that is like a semi-autobiographical story of, similar coming of age, but it focuses a lot on queer spaces and just how much they were in danger of constantly being raided by police, and police really policing like clothing, who are you dancing with, all of that stuff. And so I had a lot of fear when I was reading this book, especially when like inevitably the cops show up and like how that could have gone, which like luckily this was a YA novel, so it was a little lighter on that. But yeah, I mean the history's not great, and like I do recommend that book just for having some more context into queer history, but that's what it kind of, I couldn't help but parallel these two in my brain.
Can you repeat that book name again?
It's called Stone Butch Blues.
Stone Butch Blues.
By Leslie Feinberg.
Kind of to go off of that, which I was actually supposed to read Stone Butch Blues in my LGBTQ literature class in college, and I didn't get around to it, and I regret that. But one thing that caught my attention was the emphasis on fashion, especially with women. So like when Kath wears pants, it's a big deal. When she parts her hair a different way, it's a big deal. She's making a statement to the world. And these are all things that Lily comments on with the people she meets in the club, with the beauty pageant, with her peers. She's very aware of how she can and can't dress as a teenager, as a woman, as an Asian woman. And that really stood out to me, because things that now would not be a big deal at all, like wearing pants, was a huge deal. And it was a statement. And it was a big statement, and it was a dangerous statement. So that was something that really stuck out to me.
I'd say I also learned a lot about like Chinatown in San Francisco at that time, and like the way that Lily's father, like the majority residents of Chinatown, maybe viewed him as an outsider because he was from Shanghai. Just details like that, and the sort of communism overlapping with threats of deportation was something I wasn't really aware of. So that was really fascinating, kind of laced in with the concerns over being discovered at this club and feelings about all of that as well.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about China in regards to U.S. history and World War II. Especially, I didn't know about particular Chinese persecution and all the acts that were passed. I really enjoyed the timelines and the interludes between major parts of the book. I thought it was really interesting. And even though a lot of those pieces on the timeline are not directly alluded to in the book, I think it just sets a grander stage for everything happening in the story itself. And I loved that.
Same. It was a great tool, to just see what was happening. There's one part stood out to me, and it was actually like a display of PTSD by Aunt Judy when she was talking about her miscarriage. And I thought that was a really, like, you don't read even in adult novels a ton about miscarriages. It just struck me as something that you just don't see that much. And also like the feeling it was evoking. She was getting super anxious and recalling that.
And Beth, that leads me to another question that I have. Is we discussed a little bit about what stuck out to us historically, or like what we learned. I was also eager to learn from you guys what parts of the book stuck out to you emotionally. What plot points and feelings and emotions that you had reading the book will stick with you. One that I had has to do with the lesbian Pulp Fiction and cutting out the picture of Tommy Anderson. I felt I had a very emotional reaction to that because I was reminded of my experience of being a kid and not even knowing the word for what I am, but constantly seeking out people like me. And I didn't even know what that meant. So like whether that's, for me it would be like seeing a clip of Will and Grace on TV and I go, what the hell is that? Oh, oh. And it's probably not the best representation, but I would spend my waking hours trying to figure, where do I see myself in the world and how do I see it represented and where do I see it represented? And it's like, why'd you cut out that picture of Tommy Anderson or Tommy Andrews?
Yeah.
Because she was like, this has something to do with me and I like it. I want to hold on to it. But also maybe I want to a little smoochy smooch. So that's the emotional, one of the emotional moments in the book that I will carry with me. And I would love to know what you guys feel.
So along with that, like there's the moment where she's with her friend and she clocks a lesbian couple together and she doesn't have that word for him, but she's like, there are these two women together and one of the women is wearing pants and she pays for the other woman. And it's like, she's watching it happen. She's kind of realizing like something's going on. And I just like really felt that. And then like cutting out the picture of Tommy Andrews, another part that just like hit me was they're talking about Amelia Earhart. And I was like, how did we all have a crush on Amelia Earhart? Like, I just felt seen in a way that was so uncomfortable and wholesome at the same time. This book gave me so many warm feelings. Those were the two that like most hit me, but there were a lot of others.
Another one that comes to mind for me was Fong Fong's Ice Cream Parlor in Chinatown. I think I got the name right. That's where Lily takes, she's really excited to take Kath. I liked this point of this location because it's where Lily takes Kath to show her that Chinatown is just as, I guess, American in some ways, that Chinese people can do things the American style and really do them right. And she really wants to like Kath to enjoy this special ginger ice cream that is a specialty of the house there. And Kath really likes it. But there are moments inside the ice cream parlor where Lily kind of feels uncomfortable because it pushes up against this, like, the American-ness of the place. And that to me felt it was really interesting because, I've ridden my bike through Chinatown a lot of times back in the day and would see the roast ducks hanging in the shop windows and feel and smell the unusual to my senses, the smells of fruits and vegetables that I wasn't used to, but to feel like Lily's like, yeah, that's here, but I want to show you this to improve something to you. I just felt like that was an incredibly evocative scene, and that's really going to stick with me about this book.
I really like the claustrophobic feeling, and especially the utter rejection of her family, and so sudden, and her mother striking her. We hear over and over and over again, good Chinese girl, and it's felt so stifling. It was so vivid. I thought this whole concept of good Chinese girl, and you have to be so dutiful to your parents and your grandparents. And I don't know, I enjoyed that part of it.
One of the things that I was thinking about, like when she was going into the club, the way the writer was able to display the situation in a way that was relatable, like the feeling like a stranger in a new place. I mean, it really could, it brought back many times where I might have felt that way, like the only person who, or, just like what it's like when you're just starting to discover, and not just the homosexuality aspect of it, but just like what you like, what kind of people you like, the music you like, all these things that, as you get older, you start to come to, I don't know, you just come into your own. And I could just really feel that in the way she wrote the book.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Like for me, it was like, because Lily realizes very early on she doesn't necessarily fit in with her friends, that she's different, and not just because she might be a lesbian, but because she's into science. She wants a career, whereas her best friend Shirley wants to be a housewife. That's all she hopes for. And that feeling of realizing that I'm different, I don't fit in here. I don't fit in with my friends, and we're probably not going to be friends for too much longer. Like I could really relate to that, especially that happens a lot in high school, especially when you're a senior. That might be the last time you see those people. So that was something that really stuck with me.
I really like that as well. The sort of trajectory of her friendship with Shirley throughout the book, and her, realizing how she feels about Shirley without kind of being, persuaded one way or the other by Shirley, who has a very forceful personality. She realizes that, she has opinions about things that differ, and is kind of learning how to separate herself out from that, which I thought was really kind of emotionally resonating. And also her relationship with her Aunt Judy, I thought was really cool. Just kind of like, another family member with whom you can express other interests, like her interest in math and space exploration.
Okay, I have another one. It's that feeling when, I don't know, was it an after party or was it after the club got broke up? They go to Tommy Anderson's apartment and there's like a soiree of sorts.
Yeah, it
That
was
feeling
after
of being
party.
like,
Yeah.
ooh,
Yeah.
this feeling of fear, but also like, I'm so glad to be here. And like, who is this? How do we act? A little bit like Beth was saying, who am I as a grown person? That was a crazy thing to read and was really brought that a feeling that I have felt before again to the very forefront of my mind. Do we forgive Shirley? Do we have compassion for Shirley?
Do I have to? I don't know.
You sure don't.
Okay. I mean, no, I don't think so. Not today, Santa. Um,
I don't
Yeah.
think Shirley is going to change too much. That's my hunch. She might surprise us all.
Shirley's hard because we all know a Shirley, right?
Yes, exactly. That's what I was thinking. I've known several Shirleys, especially at that time in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in a way, Lily, she's the one who comes out of this, right, with I really liked her relationship with Kath, and I think that it was really a good depiction of just a teenage, kind of discovery of love. Like the excitement of touching somebody else, and kind of meeting in these, secret places, which they had to, but in the end, that they like that stays true for them. And so, Lily ends up with that.
And Lucy, that is something else I was really eager to talk about with you guys. I am somebody who does not read romance. I did get sucked into a couple Colleen Hoovers, but that's neither here nor there. How do you think romance was handled in this book? I feel very positively about it. I think Lucy does too. I'd be eager to hear what you guys think, and whether you are romance readers at all.
Well, I'm a romance reader, and I thought it was really good.
And what makes it good?
It felt very intuitive, I guess. Like it felt very real and genuine, whereas some books are not. I mean, the romance is like trite and stereotypical, and it just doesn't feel real. But this really did feel real, and it was something I could relate to, even though I wasn't necessarily in that same situation. But yeah, it had this ring of truth to it.
I am not much of a romance reader, but yeah, I would agree it did have some ring of truth, and it felt like love transcends boxes. So I think like the feelings would be the same, whether or not this was a straight or a gay relationship. Like, does this person like me back? I think they do. And like, kind of like that exploring and becoming friends, and, the nervously like, oh, our pinkies are touching. And like, it felt very true to like a first love. And it felt very like sweet.
Yeah, the way Lily would, spot Kath, and how you remember those times where you're falling in love or crushing on someone, and like your stomach drops because you see them. Most of the ones that I had in high school, I didn't even know these people. So, but anyway, it seemed very realistic, the way people operate.
That's really interesting to hear. I've heard a few people saying that this felt really true to life, and it didn't really feel, the romance aspect of this book didn't feel true to life to me, mainly because I felt like Kath was too solid. She was way too solid. She was super awesome. Like, did you catch how amazing Kath was? Because she just did everything right. She gave, Lily time to figure stuff out. She was never making eye contact in the halls never like stepping to, creating problems for Lily. She never really asked much of Lily, but she was 100% there for Lily. As soon as Lily was like, yep, forget you, Shirley, I'm ready to, double down with my true life here. It just felt way, way unrealistic, because teenagers don't work like that, and humans don't work like that in general. There's got to be some give and take, and there was none. And I felt like, Kath was just too good to be true, in my opinion.
Lauren, have you heard the joke about the lesbian second date? You buy a U-Haul.
Is that, the U-Haul, right?
Or rent a U-Haul, whatever.
So it happens fast.
Yeah.
So Heidi, does that mean that you felt like this was pretty real?
I think it's fair to say, like, more often than in heterosexual relationships, two women kind of move more quickly, I would say. Not across the board, of course. But that's why there's a kind of, there's a truth behind the joke.
Got it.
Kath
Thanks.
was solid. Kath is solid. But Kath is also asking Lily to put herself out there in a way. Come with me to this club. Well, then Lily was kind of just like, yes, I will go immediately. But when you are asking somebody to be public with you in that way, and it is a life or danger thing, sometimes I was like, don't put Lily in danger. Like, don't do it, Kath. But Lily was so happy to put herself in danger, so maybe my worries were unwarranted.
Yeah, she's the one who gets her the fake ID, right? Which is like, I mean, that's kind of, it was necessary, but it's also like not necessarily following the good path. And then for Lily, that meant something entirely different, because like faking papers for her and seeing her father having his papers taken away was kind of a bigger deal. But I also wonder, because Kath had some experience in this world before Lily. So in a way, she acts as a guide also. So maybe that's where some of her strength comes from.
And maybe I'm talking out of my butt a little bit here, but it's almost like Kath had a responsibility. Somebody showed Kath, and this is a situation, and Kath is showing somebody else. Showing what? There's a huge fill in the blank there. But there's perhaps Kath felt a responsibility to be good to Lily in this almost superhuman way, as kind of like, this is the entryway into who we are as people. And I'm responsible for that, for your journey into that. But that takes away so much agency from Lily, which I think Lily is so full to the brim of. Almost Lily is a superhuman as well. I think we're far enough into the recording where I can say this is a spoiler, but we can talk about it. I was gobsmacked that Lily came out to her family.
Me too. That year, I mean, it's just so early, and it just, I was surprised. I
And then
felt
she
for her.
wouldn't, yeah, she was like, I mean, because I think, wasn't her mom like, if you just take it back, if you just, will forget about it. And she's just like, no, I mean, even given the opportunity to kind of like pull back and say like, oh, maybe that was too much for my family, she still is just like, this is who I am. So I think it takes a lot of strength.
Definitely. There was something I was going to say about the after party and like the first, well, like when they're being served alcohol and smoking cigarettes, my grandma brain went, oh my God, how could, and then I was like, but my Beth brain remembered many times being, somewhere with older people, doing older people things. And so it goes, it happens. And that's how you learn. I just was always scared for her when they were walking home at 3 a.m,
I didn't find her friends at the club necessarily that friendly. She was always called China Doll by everybody. And I felt like some of the conversations at the club were really kind of condescending. And I don't know, it just didn't seem like a friendly crowd necessarily to me. I don't know if anybody else felt like that or not. Okay, not.
I
Oh,
think there's
I
a
agree.
definite
I was waiting.
there's a
references
definite
to-
like posturing going on among that group, like trying to act a certain way and
Okay.
draw in the ladies.
But still, even just amongst, just the small talk, it was, it had racial overtones, undertones, tones.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
And
agree.
yeah, it's just like people weren't really mixing a lot at that. It's not like how it is now in the world. And in some places it's really, I'm sure it's not good, but it's just some of the, like, our town is just very diverse. So
I had a kind of a similar experience to Lily's, like after the bar closes, someone's like, hey, back to my house. And yeah, definitely the older people there were pretty condescending to us because we were the babies. And there probably was also some racial overtones for some of the people as well. But yeah, where I grew up was not nearly as diverse or accepting as Ann Arbor. And I went to college 23 years ago, so it's also changed a lot since then.
I would also say Ann Arbor isn't always that racially progressive either. I think there's a certain tendency to see like marginalized groups and assume that like because you're marginalized in this way, then like you will be a good ally in other circles. And like I have not found that really to be true.
Christopher, what you said, yeah, they're not nice. And I'm trying to think of the best, like, I don't want to explain or defend because I don't think that's my place. But this is, I go into some gay spaces, which there are none. But when I did go, I had this thought. It's like we experience so much negativity in the real world. And then we finally have this room, this building where we're all together, just being Nancy's, just being, queer. And we're being mean to each other. Or not mean, but there's this, maybe it was Krista, maybe it was Heidi, somebody said posturing.
Yeah, Heidi, yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. There's definitely some like, let's compare wounds, and like I've had it tougher, so I'm also going to be catty to you. But like on the flip side of that, like I feel like in those queer spaces, like even if they're not outwardly nice to you, they will absolutely have your back when when it got raided, they were like, and when her parents kicked her out, like they took her in, even though they were like, do we really want to like take in this underage child? Like that, are we taking care of her forever now? Like, what's this? Like, like they didn't love that situation, but they took her in and fed her sandwiches and like gave her a couch to sleep on.
This difference between kindness and niceness. It's like, I feel like queer people will jump in front of a train for somebody, but will also be like, your outfit's ugly and you look stupid. And it's like, well, maybe not the best, but
I don't know. You can't, obviously not all queer people.
People watching, I'm not speaking for all queer people. Don't get in the comments. But I think what I said has some truth to it.
I think it's a way for them to get power for themselves. Like out in greater society, they have to be quiet, they have to hide, they can't be open, where they're in a queer space and like they're the senior person, they kind of have to flaunt that or get a sense of power and ownership where they can. And like, yeah, flaunt it over the young ones a little bit.
I think that's fair. That's kind of a rite of passage in a way. I mean, it's just an attitude and that people walk around with. It's just a way of living,
I really appreciated this book's ending because it seemed fair in the way where it was kind of unfair. I was also really glad that it did not end in two young people jumping off of a bridge. How did you guys react to the ending? Do you think it's a happy ending?
I think it was happy for me because I was so afraid that it was going to end badly. Because so many queer stories do, especially from, over half a century ago. So I was just so relieved that they kept in touch. And even though they don't end up like together, they still are together.
I read the companion book that came out this past year, A Scatter of Light. And it is not about Lily and Kath directly at all. It takes place today. It's about different characters, but there are some of their relatives in it, some of Lily's relatives. Like Eddie, her brother, features in a little bit. So you do get to hear about what happened for Lily and Kath. And I liked it. I liked what I heard. So.
Oh, good.
Do you care to spoil it for us, Lucy?
If you would like, they are a married couple.
Oh, good.
And they talk about like we were together. We had some years where we weren't, where we were doing our own things, but so it's like realistic too. It's not just like they met in this book and they're always together. But yeah, and sort of slipped in there at the end of the book, so it's nice.
I was just gonna say I really wanted Kath's story. Like there was a huge lacuna in the ending for me about like what's going on with Kath, what happened at the nightclub. Like I wanted some closure there, or at least a clue, and I didn't really see any. I might have missed something, but that to me, like, kind of, I missed that. I wanted that, and I think we as readers were owed that.
Yeah, I would have liked to know what happened. They never talked about it because then it was a year later, right?
The last quarter of the book seemed to be so climactic, and it was almost surprising after 300 pages of background and learning about interrelationships. Then this very sudden thing happens, the raid on the club, and the aftermath of that, and the shock of Shirley saying that Lily was seen. To me, the pacing just seemed a little jarring.
Pacing is a word that, like, yeah, I wouldn't say this book has pacing issues, but I was moving and I was still, and then I was moving, and then I was still. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, or if anything I said just makes any sense, but pacing.
It's kind of reflective of life, though. I mean, like,
Yep.
You have small moments when they're building, or they're even big moments to you, but like, it would be realistic. You might have like these blocks kind of falling, one thing knocks down the other. So this is like all kind of what happens to Lily at one time. Because I think, we've all said we like the parts that aren't so like bringing us to the edge of bad things happening and just the day to day. I also got like a real appreciation for Malinda Lowe's, the way she builds any world that she's writing about, whether it's like fantasy or sci-fi or historical fiction. Again, like Jacob said, you should go to her website because she just goes so deep into like every detail and every bit of history. So I think like maybe that's why, knowing that, I'm seeing like, well, she's got to put that in there somewhere, So this could have been a much longer book. Also, wouldn't it be cool if she wrote this exact book in this exact time, but Kath's story?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We should tell her that when she comes.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a historian, I was eating up all of the atmospheric historical detail, but so I didn't mind the pacing at all. Also, it just kind of felt like this slow build that was like pretty true to life, I thought.
Before we go, I just want to say Aunt Judy.
Mm,
Aunt Judy.
Aunt Judy.
Does anybody have something to say about Aunt Judy other than just like Aunt Judy, man?
Just thank God for Aunt Judy. She snooped around, got an address, and I mean, that was, I don't know what would have happened without her. I felt so terrible for Lily. It just like made my stomach pain, just the hurt that she must have been dealing with. But yeah, Aunt Judy, rock on.
Yeah, just that like Aunt Judy seemed to really thread the needle there between like respecting her niece and bringing her niece back very tactfully and very lovingly into the family. And that was an interesting, like fraught moment. I was on the edge of my seat as a reader, wondering how's this going to go? And just, yeah, gosh, I wish we all had Aunt Judy's in our lives. What an amazing family member.
Before we wrap up here, anything anybody had itching in their soul to talk about today that we didn't get to?
Chop suey ice cream Sunday. I looked that up because that place is, the Fong Fongs is a real place, and they really do have the chop suey ice cream sundaes, and it sounds kind of fun to have, and I think they still serve them.
I would love to eat my way through this book, if that makes any sense. I think that about every book. With this time remaining, who would I be if I didn't plug all of the events happening this month of June? If you're watching this, it's got to be at least June 1st, which means on June 6th, we'll be premiering an episode of Recipe Share, where we share recipes from the past, from this time period, and maybe a little bit sooner. Vintage recipes we'll be sharing. That's on June the 6th. June the 7th will be Lucy's Teen Pride Book Club, where she's talking more about the companion novel, which we're so thankful for. Thursday, June 8th at the Downtown Library, 6:30 p.m. We'll be showing a short film called Stormé, the Lady of the Jewel Box. It's a short film about 20 minutes long about America's premier male impersonator from the 1950s. That will then be followed with a conversation with the filmmaker. Then on Wednesday, June 14th, we'll be showing a documentary called Forbidden City, USA. This documentary is about the nightlife in San Francisco's Chinatown during the 40s and 50s. So we learn a little bit more, not so much about something like the Telegraph Club, but the nightlife, the restaurant, the culture, and especially how white people interacted with San Francisco's Chinatown during that time period. It is such a good movie. Then Saturday, June 24th, 6:30 p.m. downtown, we have a Drag King review, which I'm so excited about. We'll have 4 local drag kings performing, and then we'll be lucky enough to sit down with them as they talk about their experiences being drag kings. June 20th, author Malinda Lowe is coming to give us a talk. She'll also be signing books. Maybe you can ask her a little question. We are so excited to have her at the library. And which brings us to Thursday, June 29th, where it's called Spaces for Us. We'll be talking with historian Tim Retzloff, the former owners of Outbar, some other people. We'll be talking about what gay spaces look like in Ann Arbor and Metro Detroit, the history of that, and where that puts us now. So please come to one in all of these events. If you sat through this video, that means you want to come to the rest of these. So yes, I want to say thank you again to you all for joining this discussion, for interacting with the book and feeling like you're in a place to discuss this book in front of a camera. That's crazy. And I really appreciate all of you doing that. So yeah, thank you, and have a great day.